Hello guys, you're on my channel now, and in this video I will tell you about the inflation this year and next. Uh, After a difficult couple of years, Americans are now feeling the pinch of higher prices, the cost of fuel, utility bills, weekly grocery shops, and so forth are rocketing, hurting consumer wallets just as they prepare to spend big for the holiday season. On November 10th, the Bureau of Labor Statistics revealed that consumer prices rose 0.9% in October and 6.2% compared to a year earlier. That reading marks the fastest annual jump since December 1990 and a substantial leap on the 2% inflation target by the Federal Reserve. So what is causing today's inflation? Most economists blame rising prices on COVID-19. Once lockdown measures ended, people were eager to capitalize on their freedoms and spend some time of the money they had used while being locked up at home, creating pent-up demand at a time when supply chain bottlenecks were rampant. The pandemic halted production of all sorts of goods and services substantially, and companies are now either trying to recoup lost income or struggling to get normal services up and running again. The virus generally had the opposite effect on demand. Government stimulus packages, a lack of spending due to being forced to stay at home, and a desire to enjoy life again after what has been a stressful year triggered a desire to consume, travel, and buy. In short, it is a concoction of slow supply and high demand that is prompting prices to shoot up. Which prices are rising the highest? COVID-19 affected pretty much all industries, influencing the price we pay for everything from a gallon gas to a loaf of bread and a bag of bacon. Each time the BLS publishes its monthly inflation figures, it accompanies its report with a breakdown of price changes by category. In October, the highest annual price rises were reported for fuel, auto rentals, gas utilities, and used cars and trucks. So will inflation ease in 2022? The hottest debate right now, at least in economics, is whether the pace of price rise will continue. Many economists are confident that current inflation will persist temporarily and won't last too much longer. Others are less positive, arguing that Americans and people in the most world's other largest economies need to adapt and be prepared for more hardship. Uh, The economists that say yes, it will rise. A popular theory making the rounds is that current price rises are unusually concentrated and should be ironed as soon as supply chain bottlenecks and the low post-lockdown urge to buy these things subside. In the past, when high inflation numbers were skewed by a handful of goods and services, it didn't take too long for normality to be restored and prices to settle down. There are also no to believe that today's pent-up demand will waver. Savings stockpiles accumulated by households during the pandemic should eventually be exhausted, and government support programs that handed out checks have now mostly expired. Citi is one of the many major investment banks to express confidence that today's inflation is temporary. Early in November, in a research note titled "The Changing Inflation Narrative", the bank's strategists predicted that inflation will ease after February 2022 as supply catches up to demand and the Fed makes decent progress delivering on its plan to reduce bond purchases. What about the economists that say no? Unfortunately, there are also valid reasons to believe that today's strong inflation won't go away anytime soon. The argument that price rises are limited to pandemic-disrupted industries is beginning to waver a bit as other isolated, slower moving categories, such as rent, join the trend of becoming more expensive. The state of the labor market is another concern. Growing job vacancies and difficulty filling positions could likely lead to higher wages. Bigger salaries may trigger more spending among recipients and tempt business to recoup these costs by driving up prices. These observations, coupled with the possibility that the supply chain bottlenecks caused by COVID-19 will take longer than anticipated to sort out, mean we could find ourselves much worse off this time next year. Now, what about the Fed's view? All this panic, the people responsible for keeping price growth stable have remained relatively calm. The official word from the Fed has been this about higher inflation is normal and just a part and parcel of the economy getting back to normal after a fairly significant, unprecedented downturn. It shouldn't come as a big surprise that central bankers are issuing tranquil statements. Their job is to transmit calmness, keep markets panic free, and intervene and charge tax only when it's strictly necessary. So far, the only notable move has been to reduce purchases of treasuries and mortgage backed securities, which have played an important role in keeping interest rates at record low levels. If the play is not sufficient to take the hit out of the economy, the Fed does have other tools at its disposal to raise borrowing costs and discourage spending. Inflation, winners and losers. A bit of inflation is necessary to keep the economy growing and is generally considered healthy, provided it is kept under control. If prices continue to spike excessively, it will become a problem and need to be handled accordingly. Rapid inflation can turn really nasty and usually culminates in companies and households reining in on spending and eventual recession. What causes inflation? Inflation, the rise of prices for goods and services, can be caused by many things. In general, it is a result of there being more demand than supply, or to put in other words, when there's too much money chasing a few goods and services. What is the most common measure of inflation? The Consumer Price Index (CPI) is the most widely reported inflation metric. Produced by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it measures price changes of a basket of commonly purchased goods and services, with the data that then being used to compare current price trends against those from a prior period. The CPI is one of the tools central banks use to determine interest rates, so it can be useful for investors to keep tabs on it. So what is the predicted inflation rate for 2022? Depends on who you ask. Opinions vary on how high prices will rise throughout the course of 2022. Some economists are confident that inflation will dip toward the Fed's targeted 2% rate, while others believe it could remain elevated until more aggressive efforts are made to hike record low interest targets. Uh, so, what is the relationship between interest rates and inflation? Interest rates are effectively used by central banks to control the price of money. When borrowing costs are low, people and businesses tend to spend more. This activity usually leads to inflation, which can be limited by increasing interest rates enough to incentivize saving. So guys, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave a like and see you soon.